And welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA. And I'm going to do a little prerogative here of the host. And Terry Madonna is going to be with us at 10:05 this morning. And Scott Drinkard is going to be with us at 11:05 of the Tax Foundation on America and Pennsylvania ranking 34th best on business in this country. But we're going to get a very special guest on here right now, and she is well known in the community. She is Susan Burns. A lot of you know her, Susie Burns, of the Susan Burns Health and Education Center. And she's with us here on the Gary Sutton Show this morning. Good morning, Susie. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Gary. It's wonderful to be here.
Great to have you here. And I wanted to let people know, from the local standpoint here, what's going on, too. And I know you're so involved in the community, and we really appreciate everything you do with the Burns Educational Center and all the things you do there. But talk to me, or Health Education Center, excuse me. Tell me a little bit about this newest project that you're working on right now, because it's one that I think we can all get around.
Okay, it is called the York County Veterans Outreach. We've been meeting for about a year, and our mission is to assist veterans and their families to identify and access resources, services, and programs to meet their short and long-term needs. And what that means is we have a lot of organizations and a lot of people that have services for veterans. And what we want to do is connect the dots. So one of our first initiatives was to establish a website, and it's called Salute for Service. It can either be the number 4 or the word 4. Again, that website is Salute for Service. And if you are a veteran and a family member of a veteran, you can go to the internet and look at that website. And what we've tried to do is create links. We have about 35 organizations that are on that website. For instance, if you needed help with housing or you needed help with, let's just say, food and those kind of things, we're trying to connect the dots.
Now, it's interesting. I had Phil Palandro on last week, and I know he does so much here as the director of York County Veterans Affairs. But it sounds like you're going even beyond that here with this particular initiative. Tell me a little bit more about, obviously food, housing. Obviously, we're always concerned about health care for our veterans, our heroes. How would this be done? You have this group getting together to do this. Would this be basically just networking a lot of what is already in place, or would it be adding some new components to that?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Okay. And the our York County Veterans Affairs Department really focuses on helping people fill out forms so that they can get benefits.
Right.
What we're trying to do is we're actually going a little bit further than that in the basics: food, clothing, shelter. In fact, one of our initiatives is to establish a veterans drop-in center.
Okay.
This is a brand new initiative of our group, and that's where we're looking for space where we can house some of our veterans that are living on the streets. Last year, unfortunately, we had 2 veterans that died under our bridges, Gary. Wow. And Sandy Walker and his daughter Sandy have been dedicating their lives to the homeless in our community, and what they've identified is that a large majority of our homeless are veterans. And so what we want to do is, before the cold weather sets in, and I know that this is going to be, we're going to have to turn this around,
right?
But we want to have a place where you can, if you are a veteran and you're living on the streets, where you can at least bring your sleeping bag in and be sheltered.
Now, I know we have shelters around, but we also know that those shelters can get full, and especially during cold weather time. Do you have places in mind right now? Are you looking for people to kind of step up and say, hey, over here, we got one for you?
The latter, Gary. Yeah. We are looking for people to step up and offer us. We're meeting with a local architect. We're also talking to a few business people downtown and saying, those that know where real estate might be. We know there are some empty buildings in our community downtown, and so we're looking for that. We also need money so that we can give these veterans money for food, for blankets. We also need really warm sleeping bags. A lot of these veterans are used to being independent.
Right.
And so if they come into a shelter, that's just it. They don't come into a shelter. They want to be independent. So we need to support them wherever they are. And what they need are warm clothing, blankets, and shelter.
we're looking out there right now at a lot of need. I was surprised, and I read the numbers nationally on how many veterans are homeless in this country. And I thought, you talk about a national shame.
Yes.
There is a national shame that here are people who went overseas or didn't even go overseas, just served our country, took away from their dreams so that we can continue to support ours. And then they come back and somehow we don't have opportunity waiting for them. It seems to me that we ought to be preparing opportunity for them. And it sounds like you're moving in that direction here. But for a lot of them, why are so many of them homeless right now? Why are we having the problems with 2 people dying under our bridges right here in York last year?
I don't think it's a new phenomenon. I think it's been going on, and our Vietnam veterans are, quite frankly, they were probably, this is an opinion, it's not based on research, but I believe they've been suffering from PTSD, which then can go into other mental disorders. And when you are suffering, you're with a mental illness, you're not yourself, and therefore you do things that you might, that aren't, how do I want to say this? You're just not yourself. You are ill.
Yep.
And so then you become separated from your family.
Right.
So then you're an island, and then you can't work. If you have severe PTSD or even moderate PTSD, you can't hold down a job, so you have no money. So I don't think it's a new thing, but I do think that our community is so special, Gary, and that's why I appreciate being on this show, because I think if our community realizes that we do have this challenge, we will rally together and we will support these veterans.
People can obviously go to the website, Salute for Service, and that's .com, right?
Yes.
Okay, saluteforservice.com.
No, I'm sorry, .org.
.org, forgive me. Okay, I wanted to make sure we got
.org.
that org in there or com, because it always makes a difference. But you can go to saluteforservice.org. Is there a phone number that they can call?
Yes, and again, the person's name that has been working with the homeless all these years is Sandy Walker, and his phone number is 846-6035, and we're actually calling it Veterans Helping Hand.
Veterans Helping Hand, and it's amazing here. And again, the number, if you're jotting it down out there and you're thinking, how can I help a veteran right now? And especially coming to the holiday season. I mean, it's always, need is bad anytime, but need gets most pronounced, I think, in the holiday seasons. 846-6035. That's 846-6035 for Sandy Walker and Veterans Helping Hand. When you look out there at what people can do right now, we're talking about trying to secure a place where veterans could come in on a cold night. And if you look at AccuWeather, by the way, the projections ahead are for kind of a cold, tough, snowy winter. We obviously don't want to think of our veterans somehow out there huddling. You talked about the Vietnam veterans particularly. We didn't treat them very well when they came home the first time. And the fact that continues to be elongated in terms of our lack of caring, I think, again, is a national shame that we need to take care of. But what can people do? What are you asking people to do beyond, maybe there's someone listening out there who owns a business. If you ever drive around and you see, I used to drive by the York Valley Inn before they took it down, and I thought to myself, wow, for people who are homeless, I wonder if there's something could ever have been done there. And of course, that's not up now, out on Route 30 East. But I wonder if there are other places that are available that we could be using right now as we look around for resources that are not being used. And obviously, this is for a great cause.
Yes, absolutely. We are looking at a few buildings that are vacant downtown, and so there are some possibilities. But if you're an individual or a family, or you belong to any kind of an organization, Veterans Helping Hand needs really warm sleeping bags. Sandy believes that we have between 50 and 100 homeless veterans in our community. That's pretty staggering. They also we need cash, because not only are they some of these veterans who do not qualify for VA benefits, they have no dental. So he needs money for prescriptions. He needs money for food, for clothing for them, for bus. So cash is king, really.
Right.
And sometimes that's the easiest to do.
We're talking with Susan Burns this morning, who's the head of the Health Education Center, the Burns Health Education Center downtown, doing an awful lot for the community. And again, thank you for all that. So you could send that cash to Sandy Walker, 846-6035, or call him and ask him about, some of the other ways that you can help right now. 846-6035, called Veterans Helping Hand. Have you talked to some veterans about this, and what are their feelings? You said, obviously they're very independent people. They come home, they want to do it on their own like all of us try to do. And yet at the same time, there are so many things that have been neglected about them, or they maybe haven't had the funds or the resources to deal with those. What have you found out from veterans and talking about them? And I know you've visited some other places, too, to see how it's working in other cities as well.
Yes. Sandy is really the one who has his boots on the ground and is speaking to the veterans, so I can't address that as much. Right. I'm kind of responding to what Sandy has seen. But we did travel to Scranton, and we spoke with Monsignor Kelly, who actually has established a transitional residence program for veterans. Now, these are veterans both that have VA benefits. What we want to do in our community is we want to serve both veterans that have benefits, but also those that may have received other than honorable discharge. And so that is our long-term goal, is to establish a temporary residency for veterans in York County. And part of the reason, Gary, is because Judge Trebilcock and the Veterans Treatment Court here, these veterans have to come downtown 3 and 4 times a week. And so we were hoping that perhaps we could provide a transitional place for them to live while they're going through their drug treatment program.
And we do have a lot of that type of thing going on too, unfortunately.
Yes.
Now, when Monsignor Kelly put the transitional piece into place up in Scranton, did they use like the church facilities? Were they using some other things that they had procured?
No, this was a brand new facility. Monsignor Kelly is in charge of the Scranton Diocese, but this was all from scratch. They did get some state and federal money, and they are using some of the veterans that come, they are using their veterans benefits to help pay for food and their rent. So it would be a little bit different here in York, because we would want to serve both those that get VA benefits and those that do not get VA benefits. By
the way, you can listen to this interview again tomorrow at facebook.com/910WSBA. So if you missed any numbers or I don't give them to you again, like 846-6035 for Sandy Walker, you can listen to it on facebook.com/910WSBA. We're going to take a very quick break. We're going to come back with more from Susan Burns on this saluteforservice.org Veterans Helping Hand. Are we ready to help veterans, especially at this time of year? Any time of year is a great time to help veterans, but especially this time of year when it's starting to get cold. What can we do for them? How can we help them more? We'll find out from Susan when we come back, right here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA. Welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show on WSBA with Susan Burns, who is the head of the Burns Health Education Center. I was thinking of something as we were talking, Susan, and we're going to be joined by Sandy Walker here at 10:05 this morning. Just kind of update you a little bit. We're going to have Terry Madonna tentatively at 10:05 or 11:05 this morning. We'll have David Torrance at 10:35, and we'll have your turn to make the call also in the 11:05 hour today here on the Gary Sutton Show. So lots still to go on here. But Susan, I was thinking about what people have tried to do with downtown York. And I've often said York was a town in search of an identity. Not quite sure what she wanted to be when she grew up, although I remember back in the late 60s and early 70s, that was the center of all of our, what we did. And, of course, a lot of us have moved out to suburbia and so forth. And yet people like you have invested in downtown with the building projects that you've had. I look over there. I look at Loretta Claiborne building across the street from you. We got the Junior Achievement building, Cata Corner from you. We got a lot of people who are looking at the downtown. And, of course, many people come and congregate in downtown, and we see the rescue missions and so forth. So I'm thinking to myself, man, if you got a property downtown you're not using right now, you got a property downtown right now that's open, couldn't you really be a hero and step up here and help some people with doing some more of that kind of physical renovation, but also some psychological renovation? I think too, for a town that really is trying to do some things and bring life back downtown for people who are especially in need there. Absolutely, that's a great observation, and keep in mind we have a lot of new restaurants opening downtown. Yes. We have a lot of new businesses opening downtown. The momentum is building, and no pun intended. But what you also could do, if you have a building and you have a second floor that you're heating,
if we could even use a second floor, we would figure out the supervision and all of that. But what we need are spaces for our veterans to get in out of the cold.
And I know Sandy Walker's going to be joining us this morning at 10:05 as we continue to talk about this problem of taking care of our veterans when they come home. Before Sandy gets here at 10:05, I also know you're working on another project out there, too, and you're kind of like, you got the pie plate spinning everywhere, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, children are very near and dear to my heart, right. And we have hungry children in York. And it's not just York City, but we have hungry children in York County. And I read about how in a few years ago we used to have a backpack program for some children. And so I called Deb Eichelberger, who is the executive director of the York County Food Bank, and I talked to her about this idea. And she and I went to meet with, oh my goodness, now I'm going to forget his name, the principal of Hannah Penn School. Okay. It used to be Hannah Penn Middle School. Now it's Hannah Penn from K through I believe it's 6th grade. Right. And he confirmed that every student in his school is on the free breakfast, free lunch program, that's the good news, the bad news. Yeah. So we are going to again institute, we're calling it free food, we're calling it the HP, the Hannah Penn Quakers Care Program, where we are going to be giving children bags of food to take home on the weekends so that they have something to eat. The very first one is going to be December the 19th. It cost about $7 a bag for these students, and there are 685 students at Hannah Penn. So it's roughly going to be $5,000 every time we do this, Gary, but we want to begin to do this for these students so that when they go home on weekends, they're not hungry.
What's happening here? And I ask you this because obviously you've studied the problem and you're helping with this, but what's happened that the school is kind of having to take up and take care of this kind of situation? Most of us just assume that at home, food is going to be available, that, we don't even think about that. And yet we're seeing more and more of that around the country where we have the breakfast programs, the lunch programs, and things like that. What's happening?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on this. I only know I'm just following my heart. Right, but I think, just go to the grocery store. The prices are going up every single week. Right. The prices are going up. You have you have people that are working hard. They're just not making enough money to put this food on the table. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help these people that are working, these parents and guardians that are working so hard.
There's so many issues out there right now, and we're addressing them. And I know one of the things, too, that probably is in some of these initiatives, and wanted to address that because I know a lot of people out there are thinking about that as well. How are we helping people also to help themselves in the long run? Realizing full well right now that some of the resources aren't there, but how do we help people to also help themselves? I
believe in the good in people, Gary, and right. I really believe there are the minimum. The people that don't help themselves are really a minority. Yeah. I really do. I think people don't want to be on food stamps. People don't want handouts. Right. But they will accept it because if you have hungry children, you'll do whatever you can to make sure you have hungry children. Right, you can feed hungry children.
I spend a lot of time. I go to church at the Salvation Army Center, and I've been on their board before, and spend a lot of time with that. And I see a lot of that out there. When we come back, I want to talk with Sandy Walker and you more about this whole idea of Veterans Helping Hand. Again, you can call Sandy at 846-6035 to find out more about this program. We'll find out what are we doing for our veterans, what can you do to help our veterans. When we come back here in the Gary Sutton Show, and still out ahead, we'll have Terry Madonna later on this morning, and David Torrance and you when it's your turn to make the call. And feel free to make the call this next half hour, 1-800-357-0910. This is News Radio 910 WSBA, where it's 10 o'clock.